to watch you lead Prince George's County to become a great county. Second term since 2010. Mayor Muriel Bowser was sworn in just this year, and again, she's made her mark already. A very good mayor. She's been all around and traveling throughout the region and serving the District of Columbia very ably. And of course, we have Ike Leggett, our county executive, who we can count on to be here every year. He's been county executive now, I think, for 9 years, okay, for 9 years. And I want to thank County Executive Leggett, especially for inviting Mayor Bowser and Rashern Baker, and for making sure that County Executive Baker did take that property law class, because I'm sure it's benefiting you now. So without further ado, take it away, Bruce. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I hope the sound works well for people in the back of the room and everybody. Thank you, Ray and Steve and everybody, for the opportunity to host this event this morning. This is an amazing panel, needless to say, and this is an amazing room. I remember the beginnings of this organization, and there's no place to be on a Wednesday morning. So it is great to see all of you. There are people here who knew me before I was Bruce DuPoit. So it is more coffee all around, please. It's great to be with the leaders here in the front. And I want to begin by talking about Metro. I hate myself for having driven this morning because I could have taken Metro. I live near Metro. This is near Metro. Work is near Metro. My decision to drive was validated when I looked at my phone this morning at 6:08 and it said that Metro is single tracking on the red line right now because of a problem not far from here. And I needed to be here on time, and I need to be at the station in time to do my show. I know, County Executive Leggett, that the new general manager, who's only been on the job a few hours, basically, is going to get some latitude, some opportunity to get in and make his mark and make improvements. But if we're here a year from now, what do you need to see beyond a general sense that things are going better? Given the importance of Metro to this region, what do you need to see to keep from being unhappy?
Well, first of all, let me make sure we have a couple of ground rules here before we get started. Before Rashern starts and say that Prince George's County is the economic engine of the state of Maryland, I want to remind you that you are in Bethesda, Montgomery County, and virtually everybody in this room is from Montgomery County, so I just want to make sure you understand it before you start down the track.
It's amazing how much I like Montgomery County these days.
Well, I would like to see by a year from now, and certainly you cannot accomplish all of the things that are needed, but we need to have some assurance that there is a plan to ensure the public safety and confidence of Metro, because that is lost at this point in time. You just mentioned the fact that there's a challenge right here today as we speak at the Bethesda Metro, and that continues for a large number of people along the red line. They do not have the confidence in the belief that the system is safe and reliable. If there's a reliable plan, that people can see some progress has been made on those efforts, as well as a financial outlook that gives people a level of confidence. If we could get that within a year, I think we've made a significant step.
Mayor Bowser?
I think the county executive is right. And first of all, it's always great to be in Montgomery County. I think many people know that I worked here for many years, and I am very grateful to the people of the county for giving me an opportunity to lead and learn how to serve people. And so I never miss an opportunity to say that. But you're right to focus on Metro because it is it supports all the economic development that we do. It will support how we attract and retain families and the businesses that we are able to attract to this region as well. And we all have to remember that Metro is a middle-aged system now. And it's a middle-aged system that hasn't had the type of investment and maintenance that it needs. So the turnaround at Metro won't happen in a year. But I think that the county executive is right to say, for us who fund the system, that we need to see that the money that we give for the district, Metro is our 4th largest agency. So we write a big check every year. And we need to make sure that year to year, those funds are specifically used on safety first, reliability next, and how we grow the capacity of the system.
There's been a lot of scrutiny of the board and a lot of criticism of the board. At some level, is it on all of us that we haven't done what's necessary, primarily from a financial but also a management perspective, to keep this once crown jewel system from slipping into not only being middle-aged, but kind of feeling middle-aged?
Well, I think that, yes, one of the things that's on all of us in the region to figure out is how Metro is going to have a dedicated funding stream. So that every year, the district's got to figure it out, Maryland's got to figure it out, and Virginia's got to figure it out. Metro is so important that we need to know year to year how much money it has to operate and invest in capital.
I don't know, thank you. As I turn to County Executive Baker, I know many of the people in this room have been involved in the county for a long period of time. I don't know how many of you are reminded, as I am, of that time in the early 90s when a certain Prince George's executive started investing a lot of time. There were a lot of events on his calendar popping up in Montgomery County. But, you in the early 90, 91, 92, Paris Glendenning was always here, it seemed. And now look, we have Rashern Baker.
Yes, I like how that sounds.
Talk about it's a great place. How are you doing this morning?
There are a lot of voters here. I don't know if you're aware.
Really? Are they Maryland voters? Yes. No, on the Metro, first of all, I agree with the mayor and the county executive. It's vitally important. And I think that's why when we picked the new general manager, one of the things we all want to make sure, I'm sure with our representatives, that we pick the right person. And I think that's been one of the issues with Metro over the years is, you have to get somebody who not just understands how to get the train to run on time, but the management aspect of it from the financial portion, but also the economic development. For us in the county, we have, and we say this because we are the economic engine of the Washington region, and I dare say the state of Maryland, we have 15 underdeveloped metro sites.
That's the key, undeveloped.
Underdeveloped.
Wow.
Which is why we have the greatest potential. But a part of that, a major portion of that is Metro. And understanding, just like in the District of Columbia and Northern Virginia and Montgomery County, that we have to develop that asset. And so you need a manager, general manager, that understands that. And we've got the Purple Line that's coming along here. We need a general manager that understands this, right. Those are business opportunities and growth throughout this state and this region that's going to help us in our regionalism. But finally, the big issue, once you get the right person in there, it's going to be a dedicated funding. The biggest problem that the county executive Leggett and I have, and Northern Virginia has, is we get it. We understand why this is so important, not just to this region, but to the state. The economic growth of the state of Maryland is going to happen primarily in this Washington region. The economic growth of Virginia is going to happen in Northern Virginia. But getting people who don't live in those regions and don't understand how it's pushed to get that, why we need a dedicated source of funding, why we need resources, why we need to build something like the Purple Line, why we need the Red Line in Baltimore City. That's going to be our charge. And it's really going to be the legislature's charge when they go to Annapolis to get the rest of the state to understand why it's so important.
The theme of this is putting the pieces together. Can you talk about what you think the Purple Line is going to represent as a real option, an opportunity for people?
Well, the Purple Line provides us with an opportunity to connect the east and west links that ties to the Red Line and enhances not only Montgomery County and Prince George's County with the district as well. It would allow us to tie completely the University of Maryland into the economic growth of the entire region, for which I think they have a true ability to assist us in. And it provides us the opportunity to further enhance the number of development projects along those routes, from Bethesda all the way around to New Carrollton. It has the potential to enhance a large amount of construction jobs through the process of construction, a huge level of jobs that will be part and tied to the construction and development projects along the way, and it also enhanced the quality of life for so many people in the region. Because right now, you look at East-West Highway, you look at the traffic congestion that we're experiencing, it is really a real challenge. So overall, economically, it would help, but it would also enhance the quality of life for so many people who are now suffering in traffic.
Mayor Bowser, it's fascinating to see the growth of the district, the reinvigoration of neighborhoods, the extent to which young people are moving to DC. DC is one of the most attractive cities in the nation for young people. And so it's a very vibrant time. And young people, to a much greater extent than folks my age and older, want transit options. They don't have cars to the extent that the prior generations did. And they get around in all different ways, depending on the moment. We need options. I mean, it's clear that this is what the new generation really wants and hopes to find.
Well, I think we all need options, whether you're a millennial or you're Gen X like me, or you're a baby boomer. The fact of the matter is that a city that is going to be 800,000 people in probably less than 20 years, we know that everybody won't be able to drive, and we have to be invested in options. The other thing about our city is we don't have any place for any more roads. So building more roads and building our way out of congestion is not an option. I realized, I probably shouldn't say this, but I drove myself on Saturday. And the detail doesn't like it, but I wanted to drive, and I drove all around the region. I was in Montgomery County, I was in Prince George's County, I was all over the region on a Saturday. And I realized how bad the traffic had gotten on a Saturday just because I was driving all day in all points of the region. And I remember when I used to think that about just places in the suburbs would be gridlocked on a Saturday. Mm-hmm. And we are experiencing that now all over the region. So the notion that as we grow, not just the district's going to grow, this whole region is going to grow, that everybody will be able to drive is just folly. So the fact that our metro system isn't as reliable as we like it, it's a problem. And that's why we all have to be really focused on it, because we can all talk till we're blue in the face about everybody riding public transit, but if you can't get there on time, mm-hmm. it's too expensive, or you don't feel safe, you're going to drive, or you're not going to live here. And so we have to be very focused on making that change. There's
been a lot of talk, County Executive Baker, over the last couple of decades about smart growth and locating residential development, office, and retail, and everything at and near Metro. It's key to that, obviously. Even as we sit here today, and this is not the first day of history, the metro stations in your county are underdeveloped. What will it take to jumpstart that?
I'm glad you asked. If you look at where we've actually focused on the last 5 years of development in the county, it's been around our metro stations. Just think about it. Largo is now going to have a $750 million brand new regional medical center that's going to anchor that development around Largo. But we're also going to move government office buildings around that station so you make it, and so that you're starting to see Largo have mixed-use development. New Carrollton is the same way. We just opened the state's Department of Housing and Community Development around New Carrollton Metro Station. We're doing development around that. Knock on wood, if the FBI comes this way, two of the places that in Maryland we're looking at are Greenbelt Metro Station and Landover, which is right next to, sandwiched in between two metro stops, the Largo Metro stop, but also the Landover Metro stop. And if you look at where, so the bottom line for us is for the past 5 years, we've focused our economic development around what we call smart growth, around those areas where they're connected to transit, because that's the area where the greatest growth is going to go. It just so happens that those areas are near the District of Columbia or adjacent to Montgomery County, because we understand, like the mayor understands, that this new generation aren't going to be people who get in cars primarily. They're not going to, they may call a cab or Uber or something. You know, I've got a 21-year-old who doesn't have a license and has, you know, no hurry to get one because she goes to school in New York. So when she comes here, she expects to be able to get on the metro station at Chevrolet, go to DC, or go to Montgomery County. So this purple line she's happy about. So I tell them to spend their money in Prince George's County, but they don't listen. But that really is what you're starting to see in the county, is the development around there.
Senator, I'm sorry, I just wanted to, because he mentioned the FBI, and then jump in, Mayor Bowser. County Executive Baker, I take credit for having discovered Rashern Baker, so I apologize for being too familiar. Senator Mikulski, who I always call by Senator, is going to announce this morning that she has included $390 million in the FY16 spending bill for fully consolidating the FBI headquarters. Give us your real read. Do you think you're in the running? We know you're in the running. Are you comfortable saying you're in the running for the FBI, or do you think it's coming?
I think it's coming. I think it's coming to Maryland and Prince George's County. I mean, this is a deal like none other than we've seen in the state of Maryland. It's the first time, and I thank County Executive in Montgomery County for coming in with us to say we want to see the FBI come to Maryland, and we've picked a location, Prince George's County. So that has helped us. Thank you. And it is gonna be good for the state. But I think it's gonna come here.
You wanted to say something, Mayor Bowser?
No, I just want to say this is an excellent example of regionalism, because the three of us can sit together and figure out that it would be a win-win. So you didn't see the district, for example, jump into the race full steam for the FBI building. We decided that it wasn't the right fit for the properties that we have in the District of Columbia. And frankly, we'd rather see all that energy be spent on putting it behind one of these underdeveloped metro stations. When we develop underdeveloped metro stations anywhere in the region, it helps the bottom line for all of us. So if we can see that happen in Prince George's, that's fantastic.
You get a great new parcel of land to redevelop downtown.
Absolutely.
Why did you, County Executive, why not compete for the FBI?
Well, it was pretty obvious when you look at what they were asking for, and you think about the level of development that has occurred in Montgomery County around the metro stops. Clearly, we were at a severe disadvantage. And the competition, really, when you looked at it that way, was basically between Prince George's County and Northern Virginia. And looking at the jobs that would be created in Prince George's County, recognizing that it was an extremely uphill, almost impossible job for Montgomery County, I wanted to see it in Prince George's County, because I recognize that a large number of those workers will in fact be in Montgomery County, and that it will be a benefit for the state overall. That's the sort of regional approach that I had taken as it relates to the state of Maryland.
Are you rooting for the Greenbelt site?
Now, well, I'm not rooting for any particular site. I'm just simply saying that it would be better in Maryland given what they've described. We all recognize that we are going to work regionally. But at the end of the day, I raised my hand as a county executive for Montgomery County, and he did for Prince George's County, and she's so for the District of Columbia. We're going to fight for our individual interests, but we also recognize that at some point in time you have to make other decisions. And for me, the wiser decision was to support Prince George's County.
There's a new push to market this region as a region. Talk about, and whoever wants to take the lead on this, just jump in. Can you talk about what the foundation for that decision, and then as you begin to think about marketing this region to the corporate world and whomever as a region, what are the primary assets?
Let me start first by saying we are a region, it's like the donut, but the center of that donut, the center, is the District of Columbia.
Right.
And we should never forget that. We've traveled literally around the world. And I recall experiences in Korea, South Korea, some years ago, about 5 or 6 years ago. And I was making my best pitch for Montgomery County, our educational achievement, our level of employment, and all of the great attributes for Montgomery County. And I was going over and over again trying to sell Montgomery County. There was this blank look on the face of the people I was talking to. And I even said that the traffic was good in Montgomery County. I was really selling it. It wasn't until I reminded them that we were adjacent to the nation's capital, that their eyes looked up and they caught it. And it reminded me that we are part of a region. We are part of the nation's capital region. And although we have done great things in the suburban areas, we can never forget that, and so we must keep that at the center in terms of what we do. Now, within that, it means that developing a great educational system, transportation, the environment, and all the other things that go with that. But let me remind you of what we started when we started this collaboration some years ago, a year or so ago. We started on an issue that, on the surface, was not directed toward Economic Development Corporation. We started at a conference that I helped put together in Silver Spring, talking about homelessness. And the three of us spent an entire morning in Silver Spring at a shelter talking about homelessness. And Rashawn said something that was quite profound. He said, I am sure that I received a number of calls throughout the morning of people asking, where am I? And the response would be that I am with the mayor and county executive Leggett in Silver Spring in a shelter talking about homeless. And he said the reaction probably would be, what in the world are they there spending an entire morning doing that? They should be doing something more important. But for us, the start of the collaboration started with something that in some ways may not be tied to economic development. So part of that is this working relationship and to recognize that there are other issues on the table that we must address.
Mayor?
I couldn't agree with that more, because often when we talk about regionalism, it's the shiny things that get the attention. But there's some real core issues that will affect how people live in this region as well, such as homelessness. One regional issue I think that has a lot of room for us to grow in our discussion around is affordable housing as well, and certainly public safety.
Can you give us your elevator speech on the region, as to the extent that we're in competition with communities in North Carolina or whomever for whatever?
Well,
Can you give us the elevator speech?
Sure. I just always start with, we're the coolest city in America, and everybody knows that. People are moving to Washington, D.C. for a reason. But when I think about how we attract companies and how we attract employees, it's always better to say that there's this big region. Companies that want to locate here, and I think we're all on a push to say Washington, D.C. in this region shouldn't be second to Silicon Valley. It shouldn't be second to Boston when we talk about technology. When we look at the growth areas and where new entrepreneurs are starting, it's in those areas. And they need a critical mass of talent, of other companies, so that their employees can move around. And we also need to be very attractive to the investment community. And so when I can grow our border and the number of people and businesses that are involved, then those investors that are helping startups get going start to look at us really differently, and so we can package the assets of the region. It helps. It also helps when we can join forces. For example, when Select USA was here, we had a lot of Chinese investors here. We joined forces with our regional partners. There's some discussion that we, for example, will go with Maryland and Virginia on a delegation. But it kind of starts with us. I always call these guys for advice. Rashawn was in China. I asked Rashawn, what do I need to do? Who do I need to see? What's the experience going to be like? So we start with a very good base of personal and government and political relationship that helps us help each other.
I want to explore the line between cooperation and competition. And I'll stipulate that we as citizens love it when our leaders are trying to get on the same page and acting in concert with one another, focusing on big problems, because we know that the chances of success are so much greater when we've got a lot of people focused on the same thing versus having that not be the case. But at some level, County Executive Baker, and you were in Annapolis as a delegate, and you know that, I mean, there's just always a competition. There's always a competition for state money. There's always a competition for federal money. There's a competition for corporate, for companies that might be looking for some place to move. I mean, in Prince George's, there are teachers routinely who leave because they can, and principals who leave because they can make more money in Montgomery. Montgomery has a much broader tax base. It gives them the opportunity to pay more. So you're constantly fighting this thing where the good ones leave. So at some point, isn't there competition, and how do you finesse that in the context of everything we've been hearing?
Well, I think we all agree there's competition. But one of the things that County Executive Leggett said, just to go with the economic development for a minute, that's absolutely correct. All you need to do is leave this country and go try and sell Prince George's County or Northern Virginia or Montgomery County to people in China. And they'll look at you like, what are you talking about? But when you say we're in the nation's capital, we're in the Washington region, they know Rome. They know where the nation's capital is, and that's part of our marketing tool. And as the district grows, it benefits us in the suburban areas. So we want to see them do well. But there are opportunities for us to come together and to be competitive against, you know, Texas and Arlington, in Austin and places like that in California. You think about it around cybersecurity. You know, being able to build a purple line to make us all connected in this region, having Fort Meade, having the FBI, having NSA, having the talent in this area makes us competitive. The number of schools, what do we say when we go over there? We talk about the number of universities in the Washington region, not just in Prince George's County, the District of Columbia, Northern Virginia. We talk about the education base, not just in Prince George's County, but in the region. The income. Those are things that sell across there. Now on the smaller levels, you're right. You think about education. You know, one of the things that I did as county executive last year was say, we need to be competitive with our people in the region. So if Montgomery County and the District of Columbia are paying their teachers more, and we want to retain those good, great teachers in Prince George's County, we need to elevate our game. And I think it's good for us. If we see the region doing well in healthcare, then we need to elevate our game, because that helps the whole region. And what I said if people were paying attention last year, I said, you know what, if we improve our K through 12 education system, we not only help Prince George's County, but we make the region more competitive. We're carrying our weight, and I think we have to do that throughout.
County Executive Leggett, can you reflect on the same question about balancing the cooperation which benefits the region, and I know is kind of a default setting for the people here and others, but also the very practical reality that the world is a competitive place, and that if some, you know, Fortune 500 announced it was, you know, leaving California tomorrow and they were going to come here, well, where here? Montgomery, DC, New Carrollton. It's a competition. It
is a competition, but it's a competition that I think we all recognize, and we are prepared to fight for our individual interests from our parochial standpoint of view. But at the end of the day, you're going to look out for your jurisdiction, but you can do it in a way that I think continues to enhance the region. You do it by selling the assets of your jurisdiction by not putting down an area jurisdiction. You do it by working together to include, to encompass the things that brings the region down. For example, making certain that we all have a focus on crime and transportation and the environment. So there's a way in which you can do that. And I think that we have developed a relationship that allows us to do that. Now, again, at the end of the day, you're going to look out for your individual interests, but you can do so in a way that I think is fair, just, and people within your community respect that. Now, competitively, we constantly get into petty discussions. I think last year at one of these forums, I told Rashawn I would trade the Transit Center in Silver Spring for National Harbor, I think it was. But we're beyond that now.
That's right. I didn't take the deal.
On 9/11, it hit home the extent to which our public safety and homeland security agencies do cooperate, do have relationships, and need to in a fast-paced and sometimes dangerous world. And that I know that every day we perfect those skills and that relationship, Mayor, even more.
I think the level of cooperation among our law enforcement agencies is pretty remarkable. I think some people may even be surprised at how much they are talking to each other each and every day, not just on the bigger homeland security issues, but on everyday issues. If we need mutual aid, we always can count on our surrounding jurisdictions. We want to get to a point where we don't have to count on it as much. But I think our chiefs work hand in hand. Most recently, the police chiefs get a lot of attention, but most recently, I think that we've seen is with the Metro incident, the fire chiefs from around the region really step up and make sure all of our protocols are in place and that we're all on the same page. So we should be really grateful. We have a high level of talent in leadership on our public safety agencies, as well as the men and women who are out there on the front lines every day.
I want to get all three of you, and what order doesn't matter, but this is obviously, pardon me, a region where government spending fuels the economy to a great extent. And many people much smarter than me have suggested that we need to broaden the economy and not be so dependent on government spending, given what we think is the contours of the future in terms of federal spending. What would that look like? And where do things stand in terms of diversifying this region's economy so we're not so dependent on the big spigot?
Well, I just think that we have actually seen more diversification in the last several years than most people recognize. And one example that I give is after the several years that we experienced with sequester, all of our bonding agencies, for example, were looking at DC real close to think that this cutback in federal spending is going to be a negative on the district. And in fact, we've been upgraded twice since. And the reason is we have seen, yes, some fewer federal jobs, but we have seen growth. In fact, we've outpaced the region in the growth in the percent of private sector job growth that we have. So we're seeing it somewhat organically in that we are attracting tech and we are attracting new type businesses. But part of my elevator speech is we are not your grandfather's Washington, D.C. So we do have federal jobs. We continue to grow in the amount of tourism that we attract. Your complex is going to help the region in that as well. We had our 5th straight record year in foreign travel to Washington, D.C., and we know that spreads out to the entire region.
Washington is an insanely popular destination for global tourists.
Why not? What we have seen is...
And she's my mayor. I have to say nice things.
Why not? So, your nation's capital has free museums for you to go to, art and culture. We've seen our restaurant scene grow. Thank you very much to the whole region because people are coming to the region to experience our restaurants. And one thing that I know is now a seller out there on the global marketplace, we have a $1 bus that you don't have to pay for tours around the monuments. You can get on the $1 bus. We're a safer city. And finally, one thing that has that we couldn't compete on was retail. It used to be, no offense to these gentlemen, that everybody in Washington left Washington to do all of their shopping. Now more and more people can shop in Washington, and a lot of foreign travelers like higher end retail that they can now also do in the district.
I would love the county executives to weigh in on the diversification issue as well.
No, I think it's something that I agree we've been working on, and that is how do you expand your commercial tax base. And we talk about the MGM Destination Resort Casino that's coming. That's going to help people coming to the Washington region, to also come out to Prince George's County and to the state of Maryland and spend money. So we become this, we capitalize on the fact that people come here for entertainment. I also talked about cybersecurity. those are individual high-tech jobs that are going to be created because you still have a government, a federal government infrastructure here, that we're going to be able to attract companies that either do business or expand because of what's going on with the federal government. NASA, Gardner, it's really now becoming the private sector that's doing a lot of that space stuff. Prince George's County has the highest number of climatologists in anywhere in the world. So if you're getting your weather, it's coming from Prince George's County. But what that means in the private sector, you can spin off. And so that's what we're trying to do. And I tip my hat to Montgomery County. They've done a great job in moving down that path and showing it.
There's a report by the 2030 group, Bob Buchanan and his group, that worked on this particular issue quite well. And for those who are interested, you probably need to see it. It is about how do we diversify and move away from the federal government. The federal government, by and large, will continue to be a large employer, and we hope that it will continue to grow and expand. But if you look at what has happened over the last few years in Congress with government shutdowns, sequesters, and other things, you cannot rely upon that. And so we recognized that some years ago. This is why we've invested so much in transportation in the Purple Line, to expand and to ensure that the jobs in the region are much more balanced in terms of the difference between the federal government and the private sector. Whether it's cybersecurity here in Montgomery County, the biotechnology field, and other areas that we are aggressively working on, we are trying to ensure that we provide a job growth that is not necessarily tied exclusively to the federal government. And I think we all recognize it as a challenge, but there's a regional approach that I saw in the 2030 group that I think provides a good platform. One, why we need to do it and how we do it. Education, transportation, and to make certain that we are prepared for the jobs of the future. And we have moved in that direction, I think, quite aggressively.
Local leaders have moved forward in unison on issues like the minimum wage. And this is one where cooperation is necessary because doing right in one area, if your neighbor says, well, we'll let them try this out, see how it works, and if it does, we'll follow. If not, well, we'll just stay with the status quo. There are times where being together, so to speak, on a policy is good politics and good policy, as Paris Glendenning used to say. I'm the world's leading Glendenningsologist, and I'll be answering, for all that is worth, I'll be answering questions in the hallway after.
No, I think you're absolutely right, Bruce. I know when our council members were talking about raising the minimum wage, one of the issues I had is we want to be competitive. I certainly want to see the minimum wage raised, but if you're not going to do it statewide, you certainly have to do it within the region. And for them to go and to team up with the District of Columbia, Montgomery County, and then when it came back, it's like, okay, because we're all in it together, we all understand that we have to be competitive. And so I think that was an example of us, being able to get onto an issue where we all agreed to.
Mr. Leggett, what are your, I want to tap the roots of this organization's fine history. What are your priorities, offensively, so to speak, and defensively, to the extent that applies, for the 2016 session of the Maryland General Assembly?
Well, it falls in several areas, but the most important ones, I think, still will continue to be education. We are growing approximately 2,600 to 2,800 students per year. That's a real squeeze on our ability, both in terms of our capacity on the capital budget, as well as our operational budget. And so we need to have greater support for education across the board, K through 12, as well as for our colleges as well. In addition to that, transportation continues to be a real challenge. We've talked about a great deal of economic growth, development for our region, but the lifeblood of that really is tied to our ability to move people. Without the Purple Line, without the Carter City Transitway, without bus rapid transit, without all of those things, we really cannot grow. And then, of course, there are some individual issues that we find helping those most vulnerable within our midst, looking at issues that Shane and others talked about this morning in terms of what we do with drunk drivers and a whole host of other issues. But the two key issues for us continue to be economic growth and development tied to transportation and, of course, our educational system.
County Executive Baker?
Yeah, I mean, this is an area where, we've worked together in the past and we'll work together in the future. And that For us, Prince George's County is the same thing. We have aging schools and we've got a growing population in our schools. So like Montgomery County and Baltimore County, we're going to the state saying, listen, we need more money for capital construction for our school system. Montgomery County is busting at the seams. They need the money for that. We also need the money that's currently in the budget that the governor has. We've asked him to release that would help us on the geographic index for us. And thank you. And yeah, because it's important for us. I mean, and the other is transportation. It is critical. When we went to, when we talked to the governor about the Purple Line and transit issues, one of the things that we emphasize is this doesn't just help Montgomery County and Prince George's County. It helps Howard County, Anne Arundel County, Charles County, because they're all now, whether they want to admit it or not, part of the Washington region. And so making sure we can get people back and forth in this way. So we'll be in Annapolis working with Montgomery County on these. If I can just say, one of the things that I did like when I was chair of the Prince George's County delegation was working with Kumar Barve, who was the chair of the Montgomery County delegation, to talk about those issues that affected both of us.
This is kind of off topic, but it was referenced in one of the earlier statements. A senior member of the Prince George's House delegation has been criticized for standing in the way of the ignition interlock bill for quite a long time. Are you willing to use the weight of your office to make sure that bill at least gets a vote this year?
And I bet I can guess who that senior member of the Prince George. I used to serve on judiciary when I was there. It's one of the issues we pushed when I was a member, and I know we've, and I think you're going to see it come back up. I
think 25 states have it now.
Yeah, I think it's, I think that you'll see the delegation move. I think it's not Prince George's County, but it's certainly part of an issue that, I set out, when somebody interviewed me out in the hall, that if you look at the number of fatalities that have happened in Prince George's County on highways, and you look at the number that have been related to alcohol, certainly we have to do something.
Thank you, County Executive Baker, Mayor Bowser, County Executive Leggett, for a great conversation.
Thank you. Thanks, Bruce.
We need to get a photograph. We get a photograph here.
Say that again.
We need to get a photograph.
Goodness.